Okay, so we're diving deep into neuroplasticity today,
Hmm.
and specifically how psychedelics might be working at, like, the molecular level. I've got to say, looking at all this research, it's some pretty mind-bending stuff.
Yeah, it's really interesting how these substances can interact with specific receptors in the brain. And it's almost like they have, these unique keys that fit into certain locks, and then boom, all these events get triggered inside brain cells.
So it's not like a general effect then. Different psychedelics are targeting different receptors, different pathways,
Exactly.
and that could help explain why they have, like, such diverse effects.
Yeah, precisely. Like, take the 5-HT2A receptor. That seems to be a big one, a major player in the whole psychedelic experience. Research with LSD and psilocybin shows that if you block this receptor with a drug called ketanserin,
Okay.
it basically shuts down the psychedelic effects.
Wow. So that points to the 5-HT2A receptor as a pretty important piece of this puzzle. Before we get too deep into the molecular weeds here, one of the sources highlights the importance of set and setting.
Right.
It seems like the reasons people are using psychedelics and the environment they're in plays a big role in how the experience actually unfolds.
Oh, absolutely. There was a study of like over 1,000 people.
Wow.
And they found that having positive motivation, like seeking self-knowledge or something, combined with natural settings, like being outdoors, that led to much more beneficial outcomes. It's almost like the mindset and the environment, they create this fertile ground for positive change.
Really makes you think, like, could we use that knowledge to make other therapies more effective, even without psychedelics? But for now, let's stick to what we know about how these substances are impacting the brain, especially in a therapy context.
Okay.
So, for instance, we have some research on MDMA and how it could potentially treat PTSD.
Yes. MDMA-assisted psychotherapy is showing some really promising results, actually.
That's good.
Yeah, in these clinical trials, participants are seeing a significant decrease in their PTSD symptoms, much more so than with, just a placebo.
That's incredible. But we also have to acknowledge that MDMA can cause increases in body temperature.
That's true.
Which, you have to monitor that carefully in a therapeutic setting.
Right, of course. Safety first.
Exactly. But what's fascinating is that MDMA seems to be doing something kind of unique in the brains of people who are struggling with trauma. So what's the molecular magic behind all that?
Well, it seems like serotonin is a key player here.
Okay.
The neurotransmitter that's often associated with mood and well-being.
Right.
MDMA boosts those serotonin levels in the brain. And this increase, it could be a major factor in those therapeutic effects we're seeing.
And that 5-HT2A receptor we were talking about.
Exactly.
That's a serotonin receptor, right?
It is.
So it's all, like, coming together. More serotonin, thanks to MDMA, could be causing positive changes in the brain. And that's especially helpful for people who are dealing with trauma. It's like almost as if MDMA is helping reset the brain's emotional responses.
That's one possible explanation, yeah.
Okay.
But, we have to remember that the brain is incredibly complex.
Oh, yeah.
And MDMA's effects, they probably go beyond just increasing, serotonin levels.
Right.
Other neurotransmitters are involved too, like dopamine. And there are probably multiple pathways at play.
So we're talking about, like, a complex dance of different neurotransmitters.
Yes.
But how does all this translate into actual changes in the brain? Does this mean psychedelics can actually rewire our brains?
That's what the research is suggesting, yeah. Studies have shown they can actually alter the connectivity between, different brain regions.
Wow.
It's like they're improving those communication highways in the brain.
I like that.
For example, psilocybin, the active compound in magic mushrooms.
Yeah.
It can change how the thalamus, which acts as a sensory relay station,
Okay.
communicates with the cortex, which is the part of the brain responsible for higher level thinking.
So it's like psilocybin is rewiring how our brain processes information. That's incredible.
Yeah.
And could that explain why people often report feeling a sense of interconnectedness, like a shift in perspective after they've used psychedelics?
Exactly. Yeah. This altered connectivity could be why people describe, changes in their sensory perception and even this feeling of ego dissolution.
Ego dissolution.
Yeah, where the boundaries between themselves and the world seem to just, like, dissolve.
That sounds intense. but I can see how that would be a powerful tool in therapy.
Right.
Potentially helping people break free from those rigid thought patterns that might be causing their mental health challenges.
That's the idea. It's like the psychedelics are shaking things up in there.
Yeah.
Allowing these new perspectives and insights to kind of emerge.
Interesting.
And this ties into how these substances might impact the amygdala. Right. You know, that brain region that plays such a crucial role in processing emotions, especially fear and anxiety. So research has shown that psilocybin can actually reduce the amygdala's response to negative stimuli. Like it's turning down the volume on that fear center in your brain.
Oh, interesting.
And that could explain why psilocybin is showing such promise in, treating conditions like depression and anxiety.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But hold on, one of the sources mentions this thing called RNA editing.
Right.
And how it relates to a receptor called 5-HT2C. What is that all about? It sounds pretty complicated.
Well, RNA editing is, think of it like a fine-tuning mechanism for our genes.
Okay.
And it can actually create different versions of the 5-HT2C receptor, which is, closely related to that 5-HT2A receptor we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
And these slightly different versions might actually respond differently to drugs like LSD, even some antipsychotics.
So that means, like, someone's individual genetic makeup could actually influence how they respond to psychedelics.
Exactly.
Some people might be more sensitive or experience different effects based on how their 5-HT2C receptor is edited.
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
It highlights the importance of personalized medicine, especially when we're dealing with powerful substances like psychedelics.
For sure.
But getting back to psilocybin, it's not just about its effects on the amygdala and those serotonin receptors. It also seems to increase glutamate levels in certain brain regions.
Glutamate. That's another neurotransmitter, right?
It is.
So what's its role in all of this?
Well, glutamate is often associated with, learning and memory. It's like the brain's messenger for forming new connections and strengthening the ones that already exist.
So could psilocybin's effects on glutamate be contributing to those personal insights and the growth that people often report after a psychedelic experience?
It's definitely a possibility. Increased glutamate could, enhance neuroplasticity, essentially making the brain more adaptable to change.
So it's like psilocybin is giving the brain this boost, helping it break free from old patterns and, like, form new connections.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
This is incredible. We've talked a lot about serotonin, but I'm curious about how different psychedelics actually interact with this whole system.
Right.
Does each one have, like, a unique effect?
Yeah, that's a good point. While many psychedelics do activate that 5-HT2A receptor, they can have, psychedelic levels of affinity for it.
Okay.
Or even act as partial agonists.
So it's not like a one-size-fits-all situation.
Right.
Each psychedelic might be tweaking the serotonin system in a slightly different way, and that could lead to, different subjective experiences.
Exactly. And that's why it's so important to understand the specific pharmacology of each psychedelic, how they actually work at that molecular level.
This is all so complex, but it's starting to make sense. Like, each psychedelic is a unique key, fitting into that serotonin receptor lock in a slightly different way, and that produces a different effect. And it's not just about serotonin, right?
No.
There are other neurotransmitters and systems involved too.
Absolutely. And there's this mysterious brain region called the claustrum that's been called, like, the seat of consciousness.
Seat of consciousness.
Yeah.
And it's densely packed with those 5-HT2A receptors.
Oh, wow.
So, it suggests that it could be a key target for psychedelics.
So psychedelics could be directly influencing the claustrum.
Potentially, yeah.
And maybe that explains those profound alterations in consciousness that people describe.
That's one hypothesis.
And some researchers believe that the claustrum helps, bind together different sensory experiences, creating our unified perception of the world. And psychedelics might be, disrupting that process, leading to those feelings of ego dissolution and interconnectedness.
Wow, that's amazing. It's like we're just beginning to understand how these substances impact the brain and consciousness.
Yeah.
But we also have to, be realistic about potential risks, right?
Of course.
One of our sources goes into, like, a lot of detail about some of the adverse effects that have been observed.
Yeah, it's important to acknowledge that psychedelics can have downsides.
Right.
For example, MDMA can cause those increases in body temperature and blood pressure, which can be dangerous for some people.
Yeah.
And psychedelics can also trigger challenging psychological experiences, especially if the setting aren't, conducive to a positive outcome.
It's a good reminder that these are powerful substances. You have to treat them with respect.
Yeah.
It's not about, just giving someone a psychedelic and hoping for the best.
Yeah.
You need careful screening, preparation, and integration, especially in a therapeutic context.
Absolutely. And it's crucial to remember that psychedelics are not, a magic bullet.
Right.
They're powerful tools that need to be used responsibly and with, appropriate guidance.
Yeah.
We also have to remember that much of the research we're discussing is still in its early stages.
That's a good point. We're just starting to really understand this complex interplay between psychedelics and the brain. It's like we're exploring this vast, uncharted territory. So what are your thoughts on the current state of psychedelic research?
Well, despite the challenges, I think the progress that's been made in recent years is pretty remarkable.
Yeah.
We're seeing, a resurgence of interest in psychedelic research, and the scientific rigor is definitely increasing.
That's good.
It's like a renaissance of psychedelic science.
I like that.
And it's fueled by this potential to, alleviate suffering and improve human well-being.
Mm-hmm.
It's exciting to think about what we might discover as this field continues to evolve.
So what are some of the key takeaways for you from all the research we've talked about?
Well, for me, it's the remarkable plasticity of the brain.
Mm-hmm.
These studies highlight the brain's ability to change and adapt even in adulthood.
Yeah, that's amazing.
It's almost like psychedelics are giving the brain a nudge,
Okay.
encouraging it to explore, new possibilities and break free from those rigid patterns.
It's like opening up new pathways,
Yeah.
creating new connections.
Yeah.
I'm also, I'm struck by how much set and setting influence the whole psychedelic experience.
Yeah.
It really emphasizes the importance of the therapeutic relationship and the environment in which these substances are used.
Absolutely. The context in which healing takes place is just as important as, the tools we use.
That's true. And we also can't forget, the sheer complexity of the brain.
Oh, yeah.
Psychedelics interact with, multiple neurotransmitter systems, and there's still so much we don't know.
It's true.
We have to be careful about oversimplifying things. But despite all that complexity, we're making progress. The research is moving forward, and we're starting to, piece together the molecular puzzle of how these psychedelics actually work.
We are.
So where do you see the most promise for psychedelic-assisted therapy in the future?
Well, as we discussed, MDMA is showing, really significant potential in treating PTSD.
Yeah.
There's also growing evidence for, using psilocybin in treating depression and anxiety.
And there's even research that suggests psychedelics could be helpful in addressing addiction.
That's right. The ability of these substances to promote neuroplasticity and to disrupt, those ingrained patterns of thought and behavior, that could be revolutionary in treating substance use disorders.
It's like giving people a fresh start,
Yeah.
a chance to rewire their brains, break free from the grip of addiction. It's incredible to think about all the possibilities.
And, it's important to acknowledge that psychedelics have been used for centuries in, spiritual and ceremonial contexts, long before modern medicine even took an interest.
That's true. And while those uses are, outside the realm of traditional Western medicine, they still offer these valuable insights into the potential of these substances.
They do.
To facilitate those profound experiences of, meaning and connection. It's a good reminder that healing and well-being, they encompass more than just, addressing symptoms.
Right.
It's also about fostering a sense of purpose and connection to something greater than yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
Psychedelics might have a role to play in that broader context of human flourishing.
I think so, too. However, we also need to address, the elephant in the room, the stigma surrounding psychedelics.
It feels like, even with all this promising research, there's still, a lot of baggage surrounding psychedelics, from their association with the counterculture movement back in the 60s.
It's true. They're often seen as, dangerous recreational drugs. And that perception, it can make it hard to, to conduct research and provide access to treatment. It's a real challenge.
So how do we change that? It seems like education is key here.
I think so.
We need to inform the public about the scientific evidence, the potential benefits, and the importance of responsible use.
Absolutely. We have to shift the narrative, right? From fear and prohibition to one of curiosity, scientific inquiry and potential solutions.
One of our sources mentions how psychedelics have been unfairly demonized, and that this stigma has really hampered scientific progress for decades.
It's a valid point. The war on drugs had a huge impact, a chilling effect on psychedelic research. And it's only recently that we're seeing things thaw a little.
Yeah.
But the tide is turning. More researchers, clinicians, policymakers, they're starting to recognize the potential of these substances.
It feels like a dam that's about to break, like the scientific truth is seeping through. And it's only a matter of time before the floodgates really open. And when that happens, it could usher in this whole new era of mental health care.
I hope so.
One that's, more holistic, more personalized, more effective.
It's a future worth fighting for. And it starts with, challenging that stigma, spreading awareness. We need to change hearts and minds, one conversation at a time.
I think we can make a difference.
I do too.
People are, they're looking for solutions. And psychedelics might just be the key to unlocking a brighter future for mental health.
I agree. This is a time of great potential, a lot of possibility. I'm excited to be a part of this movement.
Well said. Okay, I think we've covered a lot of ground today in this deep dive.
We have.
We've explored the molecular mechanisms, the therapeutic potential, the risks, even the societal stigma surrounding psychedelics.
Yeah, it's been a pretty comprehensive exploration.
But like always, there's more to uncover. One of the sources talks about this concept of psychedelic-induced plasticity,
right?
Emphasizing how these substances can create this window of opportunity for change.
Yeah, it's like psychedelics prime the brain for rewiring, make it more malleable, more receptive to new learning.
It could be incredibly valuable in therapeutic settings, allow people to break free from negative thought patterns and behaviors.
I think so.
It's a radical idea, using psychedelics to help someone overcome trauma or addiction by essentially rewiring their neural pathways. But the research has started to support it.
It is, and it's not just about addressing specific conditions.
Right.
Psychedelics might also enhance creativity, empathy, even overall well-being in, healthy individuals. There's one study that found that psilocybin actually increased measures of openness and creativity for up to a year.
A year?
Yeah.
Wow.
After just a single dose.
That's incredible. That suggests that, psychedelics could have these lasting effects on personality and cognitive function.
It seems that way.
It's like they shake things up, disrupt the status quo, allow for new perspectives, new possibilities to come out.
Right. And those shifts could have, profound implications for personal growth, for innovation, even societal change. It's a good reminder that psychedelics aren't just about treating illnesses.
Yeah.
They could also enhance human flourishing in a much broader sense.
This has been an amazing deep dive.
Yes.
Filled with, mind-bending science and some really thought-provoking insights.
It has.
I'm feeling inspired and hopeful about the future of psychedelic research and its potential to make a real positive impact on the world.
It's a field that's full of possibilities.
Right. And as we continue to explore, I think we're going to make even more groundbreaking discoveries.
I think so too.
Discoveries that challenge our assumptions and expand our understanding of the human mind.
Well said. And with that, I think it's time to wrap up this episode of The Deep Dive.
Okay.
We've covered a lot today, but as always, there's more to learn. So until next time, keep exploring, keep growing, and keep diving deep.